Good evening. Welcome to the Equity Festival. My name is Ray Douglas, and I am one of the co-facilitators involved in the Equal Equity Program, which is a partnership with the National Youth Agency to amplify and magnify and showcase practitioners, people, entrepreneurs, academics, disruptors who work to support, to capacity build their communities, organizations, and ideas in relation to Black and people of color. Today, as a lift-off session, I'm buzzing in a positive legal way to have our friend, pioneer, barber, thought leader, Anderson Boyce from Hair Force One. Welcome, Anderson.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ray, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to come onto your platform. Thank you.
Excellent. You know, when I was thinking about the program, the last time I met you kind of sums up today's session, and why I felt it was important to get yourself on there, and we'll let those who are watching know your journey and the Hair Force One story.
Yeah, for sure.
When I walked into your shop to come and see you to confirm this and obviously get a trim, it was interesting that one of the most, we won't name him, but one of the most famous Tottenham players of all time was sat in the barber chair before me. But if you didn't know that he was one of the most famous Tottenham players of all time, there was no kind of airs and graces. There was no kind of, it was quite, but that sums up the barbershop, right? It's a leveler. So for those who don't know who you are, could you tell me who is Anderson Voice and what is Hair Force Academy?
Wow, what an intro. So thank you once again, Ray. My name is Anderson Voice. I am director and lead educator for Hair Force One Barbershops and Hair Force One Training Academy. So essentially, we're a small group of barbershops located in and around the East London area, East London/Essex. And we have an offshoot company, which is our training academy, which I will probably get into a bit more later. But I've been a barber since I was about 12 years old, and I'm one of the people, I started cutting hair in a time where there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no internet. And I can safely say that barbering changed my life. Barbering completely changed my life. The story could be very, very different if not for the skill of barbering. So been a barber since the age of 12. My first professional barbering job was age 17. Working in various shops for a number of years, homing in on the craft, trying to build a buzz, create a name for yourself. And I took the plunge and I went into business for myself age 26. And that was when Hair Force One was born. That was when Hair Force One, the barbershops, were born. I'm mad about barbering, Ray. I'm like, it's my everything. I wake up in the morning, I think about hair. I go to sleep at nighttime, I think about hair. If I get on a train or in an Uber, I'm passing people in the car, I'm looking at hair contact before eye contact. So it's my everything. It's my everything. And I've tried my very best to use that obsession and create something tangible, something that you can touch, you can feel, you can hold, something to support others, something to act as a beacon of light for anybody who had doubts as to whether you can make a career out of yourself from barbering. So essentially, in a nutshell, that's kind of like my short story.
So that there's a lot to unpack there. So let's go back to 12-year-old Anderson, right?
Go on.
And then 12 to 17. Obviously, that means I'm guesstimating that's the hip hop golden era. High tops, side Bobby Browns,
lean,
all of that,
half of it was gold.
Okay.
The high top, Kid and Play, that sort of era,
which was not an easy era to cut in, right? Because people wanted their name in the back of they wanted collars. I mean, because now obviously when you're saying 12, so you picked up shavers, you obviously chipped out a few heads on the pathway, as you do.
Oh yeah, many.
Yeah.
Many.
You know, so fast forward, so you've done that kind of, Malcolm Gladwell often talks about the 10,000 hours that, you know, to reach a level of mastery, you have to do 10,000 hours. So that's quite unique then. So obviously you're still at school. So what, evenings, weekends, people are coming over your house? How's it working? Or are you going over to their house?
Anyone, anywhere I could get it. Anyone that would, friends, family. I had a brother. He didn't come into my life until a bit later on. Oh, so he wasn't born until a bit later on. But as soon as he was born or old enough, yeah, he got roped in. Uncles, and yeah, you know, there was a lot of butchering. There was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of learning to be done. But as you rightfully said, I think that's a part of the process. I think that the mistakes and the butchering and they're being laughed at and people telling you, yeah, you can never do this. You'll never make something of yourself through this. I remember, not to get too far off track, I remember my very, very first shop, age 26. I wasn't great with mornings at that point in my life. That was my first ever full-time job. And I wasn't great with mornings. So one day I came to the shop late. And somebody had written a note in red writing and posted it through my letterbox of the shop saying, you are never going to be anything in this industry. You're never going to make it. Obviously, it was a disgruntled customer that wanted an early haircut and that I wasn't there for. So I take full responsibility. But those things, they never leave you. Those memories, they never, ever leave you. That will stay with me to my dying day. And I think it probably acts as fuel, actually. It probably acts as like a little bit of fuel, a bit of a rocket up your backside, you know?
Of course. And we're going to get to that, obviously, because as you became a business owner, you realized the power of that. One of the things that really struck me when I came and visited you was, you know, the relationship with you and young people, and we'll get into that. So when 17 now, obviously you're working in shops and so on. One of the conversations that we always have, especially people, men of color, black men specifically, is around the culture of the barbershop, right? And unless you've been there, and it's changed. Don't get me wrong, it's changed because a lot now, you know, more now people are in and out. But the kind of barbershops that I grew up in, you know, there were people that were there every day that never got their hair trimmed, right? And very much like Desmond's kind of got close to how it really, you know, was. But
yeah,
and you know, the barber shop that I grew up in was a famous one in Birmingham. But it wasn't uncommon for the barber to send you to the shop to buy soup, and you've waited 3 hours, and then as you're about to get in your chair, one of the local alpha males, shall we say, would come in and just bypass the whole queue.
Yeah.
It was just there was a hierarchy and there was a way things were done.
Yeah.
But one thing people never wanted to do was go to the young guy in the corner. Yeah, right. The young guy in the corner was a red flag. But even though the boss said, "Yeah, man, I'm good. Yeah, man, yeah." That young guy in the corner, you have to be patient, right? Because tough time. So tell everyone who doesn't understand about the young guy in the corner.
That's a really good point to highlight, actually. So you're right. Back in that day, it was you didn't really want to be that young barber in the corner. The reason you didn't want to be that young barber in the corner is because, as I just said, it was a tough time. You had the least traffic, you had the least exposure, you had the least skill set or lowest level of skill set, you had the least level of experience, and you were trying to make your way in what seemed like a very, very congested, a very, very difficult industry to make your way in. Now, there was many a times where, and loads of barbers will say this, you know, you were faced with that fork in the road. You were faced with that scenario. You know, you made a mistake on one of the few clients that you did get, and you were embarrassed. You were, you know, you didn't look good in that scenario. So you were faced with that fork in the road scenario. Do I go left and go and get a new skill and forget this barbering thing and just because this was too much for me, or do I go right and persevere? Go and take a 1 hour lunch break, get my head back in the game, blah, 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 blah. And many a time when playing that young guy in the corner position, that's the scenario I was faced with, that fork in the road. It was a tough place to come up from or come up in. It was a tough place, but it really did test the thickness of your skin. It really did test your levels of perseverance. It really did ask the question, how badly do you want this? How badly do you want to be a part in this of this industry? How badly do you want to carve your name in this industry, you know? And thankfully, I picked right, and I always persevered. But that young guy in the corner position is a tough position to play, because everybody likes experienced people, right?
There you go. And everyone wants to go with the main man, which is the longest queue in the shop. So you probably, you know, it's there's always a level of relativity in when we compare growing up to now. You know, bare minimum growing up, you were in that queue for 3 hours, bare minimum on a Saturday.
Yeah.
In those barbershops. Now,
minimum, yeah.
Now, when I came to visit you, I booked on an app. You know, the transaction's smooth. The world has changed, right? And
the internet's kicked in, right?
Internet's kicked in. You know, the conversation me and you had about, I actually did research to find out who you were, looked at your accolades, looked at where the shop was, looked at how, you know, your store set out, and how essentially, you know, you've moved with those times. You know, the times, you're ahead of a lot of some barbers. So let's fast track now to the business element. So 27, you've done your 10,000 hours in the barbershop. You're now looking to break out and do your own thing. But prior to that, working in a barbershop environment, and this is one of the things that we talk, these are one of the, for want of a better word, safe spaces, therapeutic spaces. I think the, you know, before memes and all the things that were said, where, you know, trust your barber, and all the memes that came about your barber would know if you've been to another barber. But I just by sitting and witnessing you're a person who engages your customers, and I'm sure you've been invited to weddings, funerals, christenings, dances, arbitration. I think you've probably even saved a few marriages from your chair. Yeah, clearly I'm right.
Yeah, possibly.
From your perspective, from your perspective as a kind of lead barber, why is the Black Barbershop a therapeutic space for communities?
Wow. I don't know if we've got enough time for this question. This is a big one, and one that has many arms to it. So why is the barbershop so important, or such a safe space within the community? I think till this day, there's still a lot of practicing service providers, practicing barbers, who don't quite understand or haven't wholeheartedly encompassed the importance of their position. Now, when I say that, what I mean is that when you come into an industry such as this, you are not just a service provider. You are not just somebody who knows how to cut hair. You are that, but you are so much more. The reason that it could be something that you asked for, it could be intentional, it could be unintentional. Either way, you come into this industry, you are more than just a service provider. You are a pillar in a community. You become a pillar in a community. Now, I tell my staff and I tell my students this all the time, and I didn't realize this as a young barber, but there are tens, if not hundreds, of kids that looked up to me as a role model, as some kind of something to idolize, you know, a figure to idolize. I didn't know this at the time. It was unbeknown to me, and it's still unbeknown to a lot of barbers. But there are so many young Black kids that come into the barbershop, and through whatever reason, whether dad is around or dad isn't around, or this is going on in their life or that's going on, you are idolized, you are looked up to. You know, people are expecting you to set a good example. And when I understood that wholeheartedly, it changed the game for me. It completely changed the game for me. Prior to that, I was a man, you know, who loved to cut hair and who loved to, you know, service my community by cutting hair. When I realized what I just explained and how important the position of a Black barber is within the Black community, things change for me, and I can't wait for the day where that happens across the board, where barbers across the board understand the importance of their position and the level of influence that they have over young people and the rest of the community.
Yeah. I totally understand, and you know, a lot of the time, you know, you've sat there or you've spoke to barbers. The fact that it's a space where men speak candidly, like, you know, we all saw what happened over the weekend. The barbershop was buzzing on Monday because it's the conversations that come from it, from the latest incidents, whether it be locally, globally, internationally. And, you know, what does the science tell us? Speaking about your challenges and speaking as communities and speaking as men is healthy, it's enriching, you know,
Absolutely.
it's therapeutic, right?
Absolutely.
So because people historically couldn't afford the counselor, quite often the barber would turn into this counselor.
Right.
He wouldn't, as you know, some barbers don't give the best of advice, but others, they're great listeners. They're great listeners, and some barbers give great advice. I think there's a few people who have looked at the barbershop as a role, and I've seen plays around it. There's a famous play out a couple of years ago before the lockdown.
I saw it.
Yeah, it was a solid play. I went and watched it as well. And it's just interesting that all those young
was
men.
Was it the Barbershop Chronicles?
There you go. When it was in the round, yeah. Yeah. But that captured it perfectly about
100%.
the role. So you've obviously now launched your business. Now you're an entrepreneur. But let's talk about the education side, because, you know, I may have mentioned to you before, I have a background working within the criminal justice system, prisons, and a lot of people who are barbers quite often came through that way, you know, the barbershop through the prison system. Not everyone, but quite a few. And there's always a barber on the wing in prison. There's always, whether he's good or bad, there's always a barber on the wing.
Yeah,
and it's so deep now that there's a braider on the wing. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So this transition from just a kind of barbershop with a good, strong brand, and we'll get to Hair Force One, how you came up with that name, because it's a quite great. I'm not sure if you're based upon the trainer or the plane, but we'll speak about that, or both. Why did you branch out and go for the academy?
So I had a bit of a light bulb epiphany moment somewhere in my career, and I realized, hang on a second, this skill set I like what you said there regarding prison, regarding people learning to cut in prison and various other places. I got to a point where I realized that this skill, like I started off by saying, this skill actually changed my life. So I didn't actually, you know, I went to uni, I didn't finish. I signed up for various courses, IT courses, this course, that course, you know, age 17, 18, 19. I didn't complete any of them, didn't pass any of them. I was hanging around with the wrong people. I was making the wrong decisions. I was influenced by the wrong things, the wrong people. Peer pressure was crazy. And life could have gone downhill very, 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 very fast. I will stand by and swear by the fact that barbering changed my life. It took me out of a very negative space as a younger black man and put me in a very positive one. Yeah. Now, to answer your question, when I realized this process, it wasn't until years down the line that I realized that this process had taken place and I'd actually been saved by barbering. When I realized that, it was then I turned around and I said to my missus, I said, I'm not Jesus Christ. I said, I'm not Superman. There's no S on my chest. I can't part the Red Sea. There's nothing special about me. So if barbering can have such a profound impact on my life and change my life and put me in a space where, you know, it's easier to become a business owner and it's easier to put yourself in, you know, in various circles. If it can have such a huge impact on my life, then it can do that to anybody. Anybody that wants it. It can impact anybody's life that wants it. So that's when the light bulb went and I said, right, how can I now pass this skill on? How can I now hand this skill over to the next generation? Young people, old people, fat people, slim people, green people, pink people, you know, how can I pass this skill on to positively impact the next generation of barbers and the next Anderson story can be created. You know, somebody could be saved. Somebody that is set to or on a path to, you know, on their way to prison or on their way on a violent path or on, you know, on a negative path. Somebody that is on a negative path can perhaps be touched, be impacted by barbering, can change their life the same way it changed my life. That was the driver for me. At that moment, that's when I said to myself, right, we're going to take this training academy thing seriously, because if it could change my life, it can change anybody's life.
Yeah. And what did that look like? I mean, initially, so people used to have to go to big colleges, and quite often, if we're honest, those colleges weren't culturally competent. Yeah.
No.
Because I know I used to teach in a college, and I'd look at the hairdressing department, and you know, even the mannequins, you know, the mannequins were, you know, people talk about equality and identity now. Even when I looked at those hairdressing departments back then, and the people who were teaching. So what was the vision? The vision was to get an accredited. Take us through. What was the vision of the academy?
Okay, so the training academy, essentially, I wanted to. At various other points in my career, I'd taken in young boys and said, "Yeah, come, you shadow me. I'll teach you this. I'll teach you that." But it was always unregistered. It was always you know, the road, you know, that way of doing things. Just let me teach you something. Come.
The apprenticeship, how apprenticeship used to be, you just stood next to the master and watched them.
That's it, right? Exactly that. So I've done that at various points throughout my career, but as I said, it was always unregistered. It was never official. At this point, I wanted to do things a bit differently. I wanted to deliver accredited qualifications. I wanted to deliver it from an accredited and approved training center. I wanted to be qualified to the level that I could teach and I could train legally, officially, you know. So it was changing a few things. It meant sort of like digging into different parts of me, you know, because it's a different animal. The academy, it's a different animal to the barbershop. It obviously has the same sort of, at its core you have barbering, you know, at its core you have cutting hair, but it's a different beast. There's admin, there's red tape, there's providers, there's hierarchies, there's all sorts that you have to go through. So it was a different animal, and therefore it required different parts of me. It required different parts of me, but I really wanted it, and I really wanted to deliver it at a level where nobody could say anything. You know, you're gonna get what you would get if you go to these big old colleges and these big old stuff. You're gonna get the same thing. We're delivering to the same standard, if not higher. You're gonna get the same level of accreditation. You're gonna get the best of Anderson, the best of my 22-year career. And I want to add value. We wanted to add value. We just wanted to add value through the medium of barbering. So, as I say, it generally come across in the form of an approved training center outside of the two branches, barbershops that we have. It required me to become qualified not only as a barber, but as a teacher and an assessor. It required our space to be approved by the relevant awarding bodies. So in barbering, that's either City and Guilds or VTCT. And there was a few steps in the process, but it's well worth it, because for each child we get over the line, each young person we get over the line that walks out of here with a qualification, you can't put a value on that, Ray. You can't value having a part in their story. You can't value them being able to say, do you know what? They taught me. That started there for me. You know, no matter what they go on to do in the future, own 1 shop, 10 shops, 100 shops, go and cut Cristiano Ronaldo's hair. At that start of that journey, you had a part to play, and you can't put a value on that.
Of course. And back to what I was saying at the top of the stream, when I came to visit you, and you know, that probably, you know, if you name the top 10 Tottenham players of all time, they're going to mention him, right? But remember what we said. It says interesting that although he's famous and notorious, he doesn't go to Selfridges for his haircut. He comes back you know, and you know, it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that. So you probably one of the first to do the academy. You've kept the ethos of the kind of the barbershop. So can you share with us some of the success stories? I know there's been many. Obviously, some of your graduates are working in there, but generally, people have gone on to open their own businesses. What's become fashion barbers? What's your? Do you want to share some of your successes?
Absolutely. So to date, how long have we been training? We've been delivering barbering qualifications since 2016. So we're up 6 years now. And we have successfully churned over 50 students. I was going to say 60, over 50 students, qualified, trained, working in the industry. Out of those 50, we don't have many shop owners, I must be honest and say. We've got, off the top of my head, 6, maybe 7. But it was about increasing labor market opportunities for all. It was about making a difference on any level, you know.
Yeah.
So whether that's some of them we employ, some of them we train up and we employ. So whether that's just to we add value by, you know, you come and work with us with Hair Force One, or whether that's you go off internationally and open up your own shop abroad. It's just being able to add value at some level, at any level, you know. And that's what we aspire to, and that's what we've been trying to do. We've had one student that has opened up a shop internationally in Australia.
I love that. So now we're in this. I mean, and you're safe. One of the areas that I think we're safe that AI is not going to take over is barbering, especially in the Black community, right?
Pray for me.
Yeah. But I was in Manchester recently, and I noticed there's the kind of these multifaceted type of spaces where you've got fashion, you've got coffee, you've got barbering. What would you say is the future of the Black barbershop? Do you think that, because there's so many now, as you know, on every high street, you know, you've seen other communities come along with the brightly lit shops and well uniformed and tiled to bits. But if I'm honest, and this is me being a bit biased, the barbering's not like the barbering that we knew, but their front end solid, you know, their towel game, their therapy game, they're really, you know, embraced it. And I think it's something they brought from their own culture. But what do you think the future is, as someone who's embraced technology through online booking and training? What would you say the future is?
It's a good question, Ray. There was a TV advert I heard the other day. I think it's EE, and the slogan for that advert is, "One day all broadband will be like this." So you kind of touched on it with what you just said just a minute ago. I hope I'm an advocate for every black barbershop, if you want, every barbershop coming from to raise the bar. And I'm saying this respectfully. I'm saying this with a desire to see the whole community sort of like come up a bit, raise the bar a bit. There's a lot of inconsistency, I feel, still too much at this stage in the game. Now, it's nice being admired, if you like, or shouted out for having, you know, things like an online booking system in place, or being able to pay with card on site, or actually, you know, getting in the chair at the time of your booking, or within, you know, a 5-minute period or something like that. You know, those things are nice. But what I really, really want, Ray, more than anything, is for, as that advert said, is for all barbershops to raise that bar and find that level of consistency whereby it's no longer eyebrows raising if you walk into a barbershop that we know and you can pay with card. It's no longer eyebrow raising that you walk into a barbershop where we're coming from and you get in the chair the same time you booked your online appointment for. It's not eyebrow raising that you walk into an establishment and you get greeted with a good morning or a good afternoon and a smile.
I hear you, and it means that we have to have honest conversations, right? Because, as you said, you know, our tolerance levels are really high. growing up with how some of the barbers used to be.
Yeah.
But I understand as well, you know, those were the kind of back end of the older Caribbean barbers, you know, the way they could cut hair with razor and didn't even need scissors. They were a different animal, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, being young people in those spaces. But we had a conversation as well about America and how America approached barbering. So I remember I was in just outside Oakland, at a shopping mall, so the equivalent of a Bullring or Westfield, and I couldn't believe it that they had a black barbershop right in the middle of the mall, like next to Foot Locker, in between Foot Locker and Holland Barrett. I couldn't, because we're not, you know, usually we know where a lot of our barbershops are, back streets or the ends, or, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then I got speaking to him, and it was like, you know, you have to be qualified over there. You can't just set up. The way that they set up their shops, the way they approach it, the approach is totally different. Do you think we're now in this world of Instagram and seeing what other people are doing? The bar's been raised, you know. It's funny enough, you know, I was seeing this, and I wasn't actually agreeing with it. I don't know what you feel about it, but a friend of mine was sending me a message that the school sent about the children, and the head teacher said, we've come to the decision, or the deputy, we've come to the decision that we're going to, for cultural reasons, we're going to allow do-rags in school. Now, wow. I was like, nah, I don't hold that to be a cultural thing. That's fashion, right? But also those who wore do-rags when we were growing up were serious waves people. They weren't like, and if you had a do-rag, you couldn't just have a do-rag and not back it up with waves. I think now we're in an era.
It's a fashion accessory now.
Yeah, but there's zero waves in some cases. So yeah. Do you get what I mean? So they've hacked it. But in terms of how America have done it for a long period of time, now we're seeing it, as you know, you can see it on Instagram, you can see how their shops are set up. Mm-hmm. I believe that you're trying to bring an element of that to amongst Hair Force One. Is that the kind of levels that you're talking about, where it's taken serious? The price point as well is serious. It's not, you know, and you're getting that return on your investment. You're not just feeling good, but you're paying for a good service. Is that what we're trying to say here?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I had this conversation just the other day, actually. In this country, Ray, there is such, and always has been, such a low barrier of entry to get into the barbering industry. Such a low barrier of entry. Now, when you have such a low barrier of entry to get into any industry, you cannot be surprised at what's to follow. Yeah, if you have such a low barrier of entry, you're going to find a lot of garbage. You're going to find a lot of unprofessionalism. You're going to find a lot of poor customer service. You're going to find a lot of those kind of things, because the barrier for entry is so low. Whereas to get in a shopping mall, as you said you saw, I can imagine you would have to go through, you know, you'd have to go through 1 or 2 processes. They'd have to see some paperwork. They'd have to know that you're not just a fly-by-night kind of business, you know, kind of thing. And at that point, you are taken more seriously. That's the whole point. People might be inclined to think, well, boy, I don't really want to put in that much work, you know, I don't really want to be qualified, I don't really want to do this, but you are taken more seriously. So when you're saying 20, 25, 30 pounds, people aren't raising eyebrows, because your shop, your business is backing up what you're telling them. Your attitude and your approach towards the business is backing up what you're telling them. Whereas if you are on a back street in and no disrespect to anybody who's not located in a shopping mall, Lord knows how hard that is to achieve. But you know, it's a harder sell if the shop looks like nonsense, or nobody says good morning, or the shop didn't even open up on time, or, you know, things like that. It's a harder sell. It's a much harder sell.
Totally. And, you know, that we're coming through a layer of lockdown now. And, you know, I know that, you know, that world of barbering and people getting haircuts became almost like a fifth column stroke, clandestine stroke, you know, Born Ultimatum world where, you know, there were people that we saw that were grey that we didn't know were grey.
Yeah.
Both celebrities, family. So I think, you know, the whole thing around the barbershop, that was one of the people after food, and after safety, food, shelter, it was barbering that came forth. So that's testament. So I noticed that you picked up an accolade a couple of years ago. Was it last year about Barbershop of the Year? Was it?
I think that was from the National Hair and Beauty Federation it was for our community work.
Excellent, and which speaks perfectly to what we've got a question here about. Do you think barbers should be trained in counselling skills or mental health first aid? So we'll answer that question after. But in terms of your community work, was that about you getting young people trained and qualified, or holding space around the barbering conversation? Where did that award come from?
So in a nutshell, we've had quite a few community projects. It was just a case of how can we add value to people through barbering? How can we do it? How can we add value? Like, if I give somebody a skin fade, they feel better, but they feel better for 2 weeks, right? So, or maybe even a week, right? So how can I add some long-term value through barbering? So we were going through some stuff, and over a period of time, we came up with quite a few community-based projects. One of which being a project we launched called Career Cuts, whereby we linked up with our local job centre, YMCA, and a couple other service providers to provide free haircuts to those who can prove they have pending job interviews. So you would have to been able to prove that via your job centre paperwork. And if you had a job interview pending, we would cut your hair for free. We'd give you some interview skills if you needed it. You know, the kind of people that we were getting through the door were the kind of people that would have fireman123 as their email address and stuff like that. So you know what I'm saying? So it was who needed that kind of coaching, who needed that kind of. So we had that actually did really well. Not that we wanted it to, but it ended up getting picked up by ITV, it ended up getting picked up by BBC, ended up getting picked up by quite a few mainstream channels globally. So there was that. We're doing some work we have done for the past few years with a well-known cancer organization, cancer charity. And once again, we're trying to use barbering to add value. We're trying to add value, you know, as you touched on, the barbershop being a safe space for Black people. Black people don't really talk about the body, the health, the lumps that you might have found, the fact that you're coughing blood. You might not say that to your missus. You might not say that to your best friend, but you might say it to your barber. You might do. So we linked up with a well-known mainstream cancer organization, and we've had some work going on with them. We got the training academy and all the rest of it. So it was a plethora of community projects, I think, why we picked that up.
I love that. And I think that can be extended on and worked around and developed even more, right? Especially even if it's information stands based in barbershops, so people can take away things. Because as you said, people don't always want to speak what they're going through. But that, for real, you know, especially about, you know, what you mentioned there about the physical and lumps and mental health and, you know, and you know, a lot of the things, you know, suicide and, you know, some heavy stuff that people might want to offload. But that's beautiful to know. I'm conscious, you know, today we've launched the Equity Festival, which is a week-long series of conversations with academics, entrepreneurs, disruptors, you know, and people who are changing the narrative. How I'd like to end it, though, I'm going to ask 3 questions.
For sure.
What's a book? First question is, what's a book, an audio book, or anything like that you'd recommend for people to read? Something that anyone that sits in your chair, if they said, you got any books that you think I should read?
That's easy. I got 5 of them. That's easy.
Go on then. Let's hear them.
The E-Myth, the Entrepreneurial Myth. I cannot remember the author, but
yeah, famous one. Yeah.
The 4-Hour Work Week.
Tim Ferriss.
I was going to say Ferrell. Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah.
What am I reading right now? 50 Cent, Get Rich. Is it called Get Rich or Die Trying?
50th Law.
No, that's the one he writ with
Robert Greene.
It's his own one. I can't remember. It's not called Get
Rich.
He's
got his with the audio book.
He's got his own one. Yeah, he's got his own. I just finished that. That was really, really good. I'm in the middle of Will Smith's latest one at the moment. That is proving really, really good.
And timely.
And timely. And timely as well. So yeah, content, yeah. I mean, feed yourself. Feed your brain, man, because the more educated you are, the more you know, the easier it is to roll the dice and play the game.
I hear you. So the books you recommend, you got the 5 there, and they are classics. Secondly, if you were going away for 3 days and you're gonna take some food with you, what food would you take?
If I was going away for 3 days, what food would I take? Wow. I would definitely take fruit. I'm a big fan of fruit. I know it's not the most filling thing. We haven't spoken about quantity, so I'm just going to say fruit. I'm a massive fan of fruit. I would take. I'm a chicken man. I can't. I know it sounds like cliche and so expected to say, but I can't. I don't think I can live without chicken. I don't think I can live without chicken.
Which one? Which specifically? You talking brown stew? You talking jerk? You talking what? Which one are you talking?
I'm talking fried. My missus fried chicken.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That's what I'm talking. My missus fried chicken. That's what I'm talking.
Okay.
What's the third thing I'm gonna take? The third thing I'm gonna take is. I grew up on it, man. Like, we had it every day. Rice. I have to take a bit of rice.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to take a bit of rice. Some people say you can't eat rice every day. I disagree with that vehemently. I grew up on it every day.
Yeah. Some cultures eat it every day.
Every day. My mom's from Sierra Leone. We grew up on that.
All right, then. I hear that. So, finally, what's a takeaway statement saying for everyone listening who's going to be watching this? What's a takeaway saying or statement, or just a line of empowerment that you live with, that you walk with, that you'd like to share?
Oh wow, there's quite a few of them as well. Always remain a student. Never allow yourself to get to that place where you say, that's it, I've learned it, I know it, I'm there now. That there doesn't exist. And the moment you say that there does exist and you are there, there might be a decline just around the corner. Mm-hmm. Try and remain whatever game, bricklaying, baking, office work, retail, you name it, trading Bitcoin or whatever it is that is your thing, try and remain a student. No, regardless of how many, and you're right about the 10,000 hours, but regardless of that point, the learning is never ever done. The learning is never ever done. So always remain a student and always remain a sponge. Try and soak up as much as you can, because there's always someone that can teach you something. Always.
Thank you. So a couple of things coming in. People say, how can we raise the profile of this excellent project supporting young people who get missed by the mainstream? So we'll link all your socials and all your contacts across the week and capture this. And obviously, this has been done in partnership with the National Youth Agency. So we'll be pushing this out in this conversation. I'm really interested in continue the conversation, Anderson, as well as about having information points in barbershops, even as a stand with leaflets.
Absolutely.
More some of the things we mentioned, and maybe we can start in your place and put something up there where organizer can just have something in the corner, whether it be jobs, health, mental health, vibrancy, whatever it is.
Absolutely. I don't see, that's exactly what we were referring to, the barbershop being more than just a barbershop, It needs to be that hub. It needs to be that information point. It needs to be that place where people can access information. So I'm more than happy to facilitate that, man. More than happy.
And we also a question here from my colleague Milku saying about barbers trained counselors, and I know counselling is a long kind of process. You have to do placements and stuff, but definitely I think the scope for part of personal development. We talk about in our work a lot around a concept called contextual safeguarding, where although I might train in safeguarding as a youth worker and someone else why is no one training the security guard in McDonald's who works around hundreds, if not thousands of young people every day who use the free Wi-Fi? We should train them up to see the signs of exploitation, as much as anyone else, because they're in contact with young people. So definitely, and that's something maybe that we can all have a conversation about.
Absolutely.
I'm conscious that you've been very generous with your time, Anderson. I've took away your 3-day things. Would like to thank you on behalf of myself, Equal Equity,
thank you,
and the National Youth Agency. And we wish you all the best. And you'll be seeing me soon, hopefully, to get a shape up and a conversation. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Stay blessed.
Thank you so much for the invite. It's been an absolute pleasure, Ray. I look forward to seeing you soon, my man. Nice one.
So that was Ray Douglas from Equal Equity, Andersonvoice from Air Force One. This is the liftoff for the Equity Festival in partnership with the National Youth Agency. Peace.
Love.